Picture this. You're working late on a project in your office. A female colleague listens to you as you explain what needs to be done. Suddenly, you feel her hand on your leg as she looks at you and smiles. You're surprised and immediately lean back on your chair and ask her what she's doing. She says it's just you two in the office and that she likes you. You tell her you're happily married. She persists and says that's okay. You tell her it's not okay with you. She leans back in her seat and says, "Okay, I'm sorry." You feel uncomfortable but still carry on with work. A couple more such instances occur, and you always reject her by telling her you're not interested. One fine day, you're called into HR, and you're being questioned about harassing a female employee. You're surprised. You've always been so careful about doing anything to offend your female colleagues. Then you're told it's the same female colleague you've been rejecting who has complained you harassed her. There's an official investigation, and the results reveal through CCTV cameras that you in fact did not do any such thing. HR finds the female colleague quietly, but that's it. If it were you would have just been fired because you've seen that happen to other men. You lose respect for the organization, and just try everything you can to avoid working with female colleagues. Sounds familiar? I'm sure it does. Because this happens in more organizations than you think. They don't want bad publicity, and for that reason, they don't even punish the female staff. Can you relate to this story? Thousands of men can. Thousands of men have faced the consequences of being with women who have made false allegations against them, ruining their image and reputation, and essentially their lives by making them unemployable in their industries. There's research that was conducted to evaluate the effects and consequences of the Me Too movement a couple of years ago. It found that men are becoming noticeably less willing to approach their female peers in the workplace. According to the report, 20% of men avoid speaking to and interacting with female coworkers privately. A third or more of men stated they would be terrified to be alone with a woman in the study's primary research, which questioned men how they would feel if they were in the office alone with a woman. Why? Well, the main reason is that they just don't want to be in a situation where they're framed for any sort of allegations against them by the women. They don't want to lose their jobs over some women. And it's pretty easy for women to have a man fired from his job these days. It's just one email, call, or conversation away from and with HR. Men will always be guilty in the eyes of corporate authority. Nowadays, until you can prove your innocence, you are guilty. Men are most afraid of this. God forbid, if a woman even alleges untruly that a guy harassed her at work, that man will lose his job and any chance of getting another employment in the future, along with his reputation and self-esteem. That is the enormous advantage that women have over men at work. Therefore, it should come as no surprise that 21% of men said they would be reluctant to hire a woman for a job that needs an intimate connection, like traveling for business. 19% of the males responded that they would be reluctant to hire a woman who was deemed attractive by social norms. This was the result of a survey taken from employees working in a variety of businesses. The survey also noted that similar surveys taken in the past did not garner similar results. In the previous surveys, men were more comfortable interacting with women in office settings. Previously, 15% of men compared to 21% in the later surveys indicated they would be less likely to recruit women for positions that demand close interpersonal interactions. Men would rather avoid the drama and gossip that women bring to office spaces. Women are also left out of the team's private and confidential meetings when important information is exchanged. For instance, if I had to share anything with a coworker in a cramped conference room alone, and I had to go with someone, I'd prefer to pick a man, since I understand that inviting a woman into a confined space might seem odd to others. Not just in America, but also in Europe, England, and other countries. The detrimental repercussions of Me Too are still being felt in the corporate sector. As long as they continue to overreact to the movement and make the sort of unfounded accusations that we regularly see in the media, males will continue to shun working alongside women. Unfortunately, most women bring gossip and drama to the workplace, which is not appropriate. And so, with all of this, modern women are somehow angry that men are avoiding them at work. They don't realize why. They don't realize that for a man, his work is everything. It feeds his family and keeps his house running. For a woman to make false allegations to take away that is reason enough for men to avoid women at work altogether. The reality is that men would rather work more freely with other men. This only serves to demonstrate how increasingly wary males have become of women throughout time, especially in the last 10 years, and how much they would prefer to communicate and work with other guys. In cubicles, meetings, and boardrooms, They prefer to work with other males rather than women because they can share information, talk about ideas, and organize their schedules together. This is due to their fear of losing the career they have worked so hard to build over a long period. They may lose everything with just one unfounded accusation. In a society that primarily takes into account and believes what women say, one false charge could end up being the villain. Men can see what has happened over the years, especially with the advent of the Me Too movement. They don't want to bear responsibility for something they did not commit. They don't want to lose their jobs, status, and position in society. Just to be clear, men not saying that they are the only ones that are terrified of women here. Women also seem to be hiring fewer women in general. According to the results of the preceding poll, more than 10% of men and women were projected to be less likely than before to hire attractive women. I feel this is the case because, in general, people tend to believe attractive people more than those who lack beauty. We can credit popular culture for that. Some people may be accused of harassment for merely making jokes with a coworker. Even in this instance, two male coworkers could legitimately be making jokes among themselves without targeting anyone, and they could be condemned for it as harassment. Then, all of a sudden, HR is after them and interrogating them about everything. Men are wary of shaking hands with women out of concern that she could view it as harassment. Avoiding touch altogether would be easier. People's perceptions of acceptable and inappropriate workplace interactions are distorted. The study's thorough debunking of the notion that men lack a clear sense of what constitutes unacceptable behavior, however, is what makes it so intriguing. The first step taken by the researchers was to examine a list of acts and determine whether or not to categorize them as harassment. Sending explicit emails to subordinates is an example of this. Both genders largely agree on what harassment entails, and the majority of men and women, respectively, are aware of what it is. One of the authors of the research told the Harvard Business Review that it is mostly inaccurate to suggest that men don't realize their behavior is inappropriate and that women are making a mountain out of a molehill. If anything, women define harassment more broadly than do males. Most males can distinguish between a lovely hug and a wicked one. They are fully aware of what is considered harassment. On the other hand, from the perspective of a woman, anything is harassment. If a line manager asks a subordinate or junior team member to stay late at the office for an hour, she can create a scenario in which she is seen with the manager in the CCTV cameras as he speaks to her and gives her instructions on how to approach a specific project, and she can then essentially fabricate a story about how he was trying to harass her. And you know what? HR would believe the woman. It makes sense that males would want to avoid being alone with women to avoid any potential problems that could endanger their entire careers. And because they feel left out, women have started to protest about this. They are no longer expected to work harder on projects and finish them in the office's wee hours of the morning. Because they know their professions won't be in jeopardy, people would prefer to ask men to stay late and work with them. Working with female colleagues in this day and age has its disadvantages for men, and it's no wonder men are avoiding working with women at work. Thanks for watching Man Reacts. Show us your love and support by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. Support us and help us spread support for men around the world. Do comment and share your thoughts. We're always up for a healthy debate and discussion.